When basketball superstar Stephen Curry arrived at the Golden Gate table after a grueling cross-country flight, the last thing he expected was to be told there were no tables available. But that's precisely what happened. The maître d' Julian Croft didn't recognize the world-famous athlete and refused to believe he owned the celebrated San Francisco restaurant, even after Steph told him so. Instead of getting angry or pulling rank, Steph decided to use this bizarre mistake to his advantage. If they wouldn't recognize him as the owner, he would experience his own restaurant as a regular customer. What he discovered shocked him: superior ingredients, poor service, and baffling management decisions. Something was deeply wrong. With the help of a 14-year-old food blogger named Maya and a few loyal employees, Steph began to uncover a secret plot to sabotage his restaurant from the inside. But who was behind it all? And why would someone deliberately try to ruin this once great culinary landmark? As Steph walked toward the bar, a familiar feeling washed over him, the calm, intense focus that always came before a pivotal game. The saboteurs might think they were winning, but they'd forgotten one important thing. Stephen Curry hates losing, and he never, ever gives up without a fight. Stephen Curry's shoulders ached as he pushed open the heavy, ornate door of the Golden Gate table. The flight from Charlotte had been turbulent, and all he wanted was a perfectly cooked steak and a glass of Cabernet in the quiet corner of his own restaurant. Outside, a thick San Francisco fog pressed against the tall panoramic windows of the dining room, making the warm, amber lights inside feel even more inviting. Finally, Steph whispered to himself, his eyes scanning the restaurant he had purchased 6 months ago. He hadn't had a chance to visit in person since the deal closed. His season had been all-consuming. From a distance, the place looked magnificent. Soaring ceilings, a stunning view of the bay, and staff moving with what appeared to be practiced grace. But as he looked closer, he noticed small imperfections. A faint water stain on the ceiling above the bar, a flickering candle on an empty table, a deep scratch in the polished mahogany of the host stand. Little things most patrons wouldn't spot, but Steph's eyes were trained to see every detail, on and off the court. He approached the host stand, where a young man with meticulously styled hair and a suit that was a size too tight was tapping impatiently on a tablet. His name tag, pinned perfectly to his lapel, read Julian Croft, Maitre d'. "Good evening," Steph said with his trademark warm, easy smile. "I'd like a table for one, please." Julian looked up, his eyes gliding over Steph's casual hoodie and jeans without a flicker of recognition. "Of course, sir. Do you have a reservation?" "Curry. Stephen Curry." Julian nodded curtly and tapped the name into his tablet. He frowned, his brow furrowing in theatrical concentration as he scanned the screen. "I'm sorry, Mr. Curry, but I don't see a reservation under that name. Do you have a confirmation email?" Steph patted his pockets, a wry smile touching his lips. He hadn't made a formal reservation. He hadn't imagined he'd need one. "I don't. My assistant usually handles these things." "Let me check again," Julian said, his tone suggesting he was doing Steph a great favor. He typed more deliberately this time. "Curry. No, I'm very sorry, but there's nothing in our system. We're quite busy this evening. The tech conference at Moscone Center has the city completely booked." "I see a few empty tables," Steph noted, gesturing toward a quiet two, topped by the window. Julian's professional smile became a thin, condescending line. "Sir, those tables are being held for our preferred clientele and confirmed reservations. An empty table does not mean an available table. Perhaps I can offer you a seat at the bar?" Steph blinked in surprise. He knew for a fact the restaurant wasn't fully booked. He had checked the reservation numbers on his phone during the car ride from the airport. The Golden Gate table was only at 70% capacity tonight. "There must be some mistake," Steph said, keeping his voice even and calm. "I know you have tables available." Julian's eyebrows arched. "Sir, our system shows we are fully committed. Perhaps another restaurant? I hear the French Laundry has openings." "In about 3 months." He chuckled softly at his own joke. "I don't need another restaurant," Steph said, leaning forward slightly. "I need a table here. I own this place." The words hung in the air between them. A couple waiting nearby glanced over, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Julian's smile tightened into a mask of pity. "Sir, I'm sure you understand that we hear all sorts of things in this business. I'd be happy to help you find alternative accommodations for tonight." Steph stared at him, momentarily speechless. Did he really not recognize him? Sure, he wasn't wearing his Warriors jersey, but he was one of the most recognizable faces in the Bay Area, if not the world. "You don't understand." Steph tried again, a note of disbelief in his voice. "I literally own the Golden Gate table. My investment group bought it 6 months ago." "Mr. Curry," Julian said firmly, his voice dripping with condescension, "our owner is the Bay Area Hospitality Group, a private investment firm, not an individual. Now, would you like me to call a taxi for you?" Steph felt his face grow warm. Part of the purchase agreement had been keeping his majority ownership quiet for a year while he evaluated the restaurant's operations. So, technically, Julian was right about the investment group Steph controlled, but still, being denied a table in his own restaurant was more than just irritating, it was profoundly, surreally wrong. A few more guests had wandered into the foyer, and some were beginning to stare. An older man with a Warriors cap nudged his wife and pointed. "Honey, isn't that?" "Is there a manager on duty?" Steph asked, cutting through the murmurs that had begun to ripple through the waiting area. "Mr. Holloway is here, but he's in a meeting," Julian replied. "I assure you, sir, there's nothing he could do about our lack of available tables." Steph paused. Holloway? That wasn't right. The general manager was supposed to be his old friend and trusted advisor, Alex Chen. He had hired Alex himself to oversee the transition. Where was Alex? Before he could pull out his phone, a young girl in a Warriors hoodie, sitting at a nearby table with her parents, let out a gasp. She dropped her fork with a clatter, her jaw slack as she stared at Steph. "Mom! Dad! That's Stephen Curry!" the girl exclaimed, pointing with an unsteady finger. "That's really him!" The foyer went quiet as every head turned their way. The girl, who looked to be about 14, clutched a small notebook to her chest, her eyes shining. "Maya, it's not polite to point," her mother said softly, though her own eyes were wide with surprise. "But Mom, it's really him, it's Steph Curry." Steph gave the girl a small, appreciative smile and a nod, confirming his identity. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the foyer shifted. Phones materialized in hands, people whispered to each other. Julian's eyes widened as he looked from Steph to the excited girl, the color draining from his face. Are you really Stephen Curry?" he asked quietly, his confident facade crumbling like a day-old croissant. "Yes, I am," Steph replied simply. Julian's face flushed a deep, mottled red. The basketball player?" he stammered. Oh my. I'm so sorry, Mr. Curry. I don't really follow sports," he explained quickly, as if that excused everything. But that doesn't change our table situation. We're still fully booked tonight." Steph couldn't believe what he was hearing. Even after his identity was confirmed, the maitre d' was still stonewalling him, insisting there were no tables in a restaurant that Steph knew for a fact was nearly a third empty. The young girl, Maya, had broken free from her parents and approached Steph, her notebook held out like a sacred offering. "Mr. Curry, can I have your autograph? I'm a huge fan. And I'm a food blogger. I'm reviewing your restaurant tonight." Steph smiled genuinely for the first time since entering the restaurant. "What's your name?" "Maya. Maya Singh. I'm 14. "Nice to meet you, Maya," Steph said, taking the notebook and pen she offered. As he signed his name, an idea began to form in his mind. Maybe being turned away wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe this was exactly what he needed, a chance to experience his restaurant as a real customer would, not as the owner getting the red carpet treatment. He handed the notebook back to Maya, who clutched it to her chest as if it were a championship trophy. "Thank you, Mr. Curry. This is the best day ever," she said before her parents gently guided her back to their table, mouthing apologies that Steph waved off with a smile. Turning back to Julian, Steph took a deep breath. "Is your manager still in his meeting? I'd like to speak with him, please." Julian looked torn, finally realizing the magnitude of his blunder. I'll see if he's available. As Julian picked up the phone, Steph glanced around the dining room again, seeing it with new eyes. So this was how the Golden Gate table treated its guests. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. The memory of how he came to own this place flashed through his mind. 6 months ago, he'd been in his office overlooking the Bay Bridge, reviewing investment opportunities with his business team. Next on the list is the Golden Gate table, said his chief financial advisor, sliding a thick folder across the table. It's been losing money for 2 years straight. Steph opened the folder. He knew the restaurant by reputation. It had been an institution, a Michelin-starred jewel in San Francisco's culinary crown. This used to be one of the best restaurants in the country. What happened? Poor management, his advisor replied. The owner, Rex Holloway, doesn't seem to care anymore. He's more interested in his social life. Steph's head snapped up. Rex Holloway? Yes. Do you know him? Steph leaned back in his chair, a flood of memories washing over him. Oh, he knew Rex Holloway. He could still picture Rex as the cocky, trash-talking point guard for a rival college team. Rex had been a 5-star recruit, destined for NBA stardom, and he never let anyone forget it. Curry's just a shooter, Rex had told a reporter before a big tournament game. He's got no handle, no defense. I'm gonna lock him down. Those words had fueled Steph. He'd spent that game not just outscoring Rex, but out-hustling him, embarrassing him with crossovers and steals. Rex had been drafted a few picks ahead of Steph, but his pro career had been a spectacular flameout, derailed by injuries and a notorious lack of work ethic. Meanwhile, Steph's star had risen to heights no one, least of all Rex Holloway, could have ever imagined. Mr. Curry? His advisor's voice pulled him back to the present. Should we pass on this one? No, Steph said firmly. I want to know more. His team compiled a report. The restaurant had been Rex's father's passion project. Rex had inherited it 5 years ago and had been running it into the ground ever since. The location was prime, the brand was legendary, and the underlying structure was solid. It's a fantastic investment opportunity, another advisor concluded. With proper management, it could be a goldmine again. Steph nodded slowly, an idea forming. Set up a meeting with Holloway. Don't tell him it's me who's interested. Just say you represent a potential buyer. A week later, Rex Holloway had swaggered into a conference room, expecting to meet some anonymous tech mogul. The shock on his face when he saw Steph sitting there was worth every penny the restaurant would cost. Curry, Rex had said flatly, his handshake limp and brief. Didn't expect to see you. It's been a long time, Rex. The negotiations had been tense. Rex clearly needed to sell, but his pride was a major obstacle. I'll sell you the restaurant on one condition, Rex had said on the day they were supposed to sign the papers. You can't announce your ownership publicly for 1 year. Why? Rex had shrugged, a smirk playing on his lips. I have my reasons. Maybe I don't want people knowing I had to sell to you, of all people. Take it or leave it. Steph had considered walking away, but something about the Golden Gate table had captured his imagination. Maybe it was the challenge of turning something great back to its former glory. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the chance to beat Rex Holloway one more time. Fine, Steph had agreed. 1 year. But I'm putting my own management team in place immediately. Of course, Rex had said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. It's your restaurant. They'd shaken hands, signed the papers, and the Golden Gate table had become Steph's latest project. He'd immediately hired his friend Alex Chen as general manager and started planning a quiet overhaul. But he'd respected the agreement, and only his inner circle knew the truth. Mr. Curry? Julian's voice pulled Steph back to the present. He blinked, returning to the reality of standing in his own restaurant, being denied a table. Mr. Holloway can see you now. A moment later, a tall man with slick-back hair and an expensive suit approached, hand extended. Mr. Curry, I'm Damon Holloway, the restaurant manager. It's an honor to meet you, sir. Steph shook his hand. Holloway? A relative of Rex's? This was getting stranger by the minute. Mr. Holloway, there seems to be some confusion about available tables. Yes, I heard. Very strange, Damon said, glancing at Julian, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Our system does show we're fully booked, but let me check something. Damon typed rapidly on the tablet, frowning. This is odd. We should have at least a dozen tables available tonight. Steph raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Ah, here's the issue, Damon said suddenly. These tables were marked as out of service for a private event tomorrow, a system glitch. I do apologize for the confusion, Mr. Curry. We'd be honored to have you dine with us. Steph nodded slowly, watching Damon carefully. The manager seemed genuine enough, but why had all those tables been marked as unavailable? And where was Alex? As if on cue, Steph's phone buzzed. A text from Alex. Stuck in traffic. Emergency supplier meeting was a ghost. They sent me to Oakland for nothing. Something weird is going on. Don't do anything until I get there. Too late for that. Mr. Curry, Damon was saying, holding out a menu. Table 23 is one of our premier tables. I've taken the liberty of seating you there. On the house, of course. As Steph reached for the menu, he made a split-second decision. Actually, Mr. Holloway, I think I'll just take that seat at the bar. I don't need any special treatment. Damon looked confused. Are you sure? The tables are much more comfortable. I'm sure, Steph said firmly. I want the real Golden Gate table experience. Damon hesitated, then nodded. As you wish, Mr. Curry. He leaned closer and lowered his voice. Again, my sincere apologies for the mix-up. If there's anything at all you need, please don't hesitate to ask for me personally. As Damon walked away and Julian scurried off to hide in the coat check, Steph couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong at his restaurant. The fake meeting, the blocked tables, Alex's absentee note of it added up. One thing was certain, being denied a table might have been the best thing that could have happened. Now he had a chance to see the Golden Gate table as it really was, not as everyone would pretend it was for the owner's visit. As he walked toward the bar, Steph felt a new sense of purpose. He wasn't just a customer now. He was an undercover owner, about to discover the truth about his own restaurant. Meanwhile, in the Golden Gate table's bustling kitchen, head chef Isabella Rossi wiped sweat from her brow with the back of her hand. The kitchen was sweltering, as usual, thanks to the faulty ventilation hood that management had promised to fix 4 months ago. Leo, how are those scallops coming? Isabella called to one of her line cooks, a talented young man barely out of culinary school. Almost ready, chef, Leo replied, his focus absolute. Isabella nodded and turned her attention back to the plates she was meticulously arranging. Word had come down that an important VIP was in the restaurant, though no one had said who. All Isabella knew was that Damon Holloway had instructed her to pull out all the stops. Whatever you can do with the ingredients we have, he'd added, which had made Isabella want to hurl a sauté pan across the room. The ingredients they had were a pale imitation of what she needed. Drastic budget cuts had forced her to use cheaper, lower-quality suppliers, and the difference was heartbreaking. Still, Isabella took pride in her work. She would craft the best meal possible, even if it required culinary alchemy. Maria, check the walk-in again, Isabella instructed her sous chef. See if that delivery of fresh produce ever arrived. Maria returned a minute later, shaking her head. Still nothing, chef. Just the same wilted lettuce from yesterday. Isabella sighed and made a note on her clipboard. Another problem to report. Another complaint that would likely be ignored. Across the city, Alex Chen sat in standstill traffic on the Bay Bridge, drumming his fingers anxiously on the steering wheel. He'd been trying to call Steph for the last 20 minutes, but it went straight to voicemail. Steph, it's Alex. Call me as soon as you get this, he said urgently into his phone. Something is very wrong. I got called to an emergency meeting with our fish supplier in Oakland, but when I got there, they had no idea what I was talking about. It was a wild goose chase. Then I noticed a dozen tables were blocked in the reservation system without authorization. I'm stuck in traffic, but I'm on my way. Don't let them know who you are until I get there. Too late for that warning, Alex thought as he ended the call. Steph was probably already inside. He just hoped his friend wouldn't run into any trouble before Alex could explain what he'd discovered about Damon Holloway and his unsettling loyalty to the restaurant's former owner, Rex. Back inside the Golden Gate table, the evening service continued its chaotic rhythm, the staff unaware of the owner's presence among them. Waiters rushed between tables, their smiles strained. Bartenders struggled to keep up with a flood of complex cocktail orders. The front desk staff checked in new arrivals, none of them receiving the strange treatment Steph had experienced. At the bar, Steph took a sip of his old-fashioned. It was mediocre at best. The whiskey was a cheap rail brand, and the orange peel was dry and lifeless. He watched the bartenders, who were clearly skilled but overwhelmed. They didn't have the proper ingredients for half the drinks on the menu and were forced to make substitutions that left customers grumbling. This wasn't just a restaurant with a few problems. This felt like a system on the verge of collapse. He pulled out his phone and began to type, documenting every observation. The bar was just the beginning of his investigation. He was about to find out what was really going on in the heart of his restaurant, the kitchen, and he had a feeling he wasn't going to like what he found. 14-year-old Maya Singh couldn't believe her luck. First, she'd met Stephen Curry, her absolute hero, and gotten his autograph for her food blog, Maya's Bites. Now, she was watching the legend himself sit at the bar, observing the restaurant with the focused intensity of a detective. Something was definitely going on. Why would anyone not give Steph Curry a table? And why was that smarmy manager Damon talking about some secret plan earlier? "Mom, can I go get some water?" Maya asked, her eyes still following Steph. Her mother nodded, distracted by the wine list. "Stay where we can see you." Maya walked slowly toward the water station, then quickened her pace once her parents weren't looking. She wasn't going for water. She was on a mission. Keeping a safe distance, Maya watched as Steph finished his drink and headed toward the back of the restaurant, disappearing through a door marked "Staff Only." Her heart raced. This was just like one of those restaurant rescue shows she loved to watch. She had to see what was happening. Taking a deep breath, she slipped through the same door just as it was swinging shut. The hallway was a stark contrast to the elegant dining room. It was narrow, dimly lit, and smelled of grease and cleaning supplies. She could hear the clang of pots and the shouts of the kitchen staff. Peeking around a corner, she saw Steph talking to the head chef, a woman with a fiery expression and a stained apron. They were standing by a large, stainless steel refrigerator. "Not what they promised," the chef was saying, her voice a mixture of anger and frustration. She pulled open the refrigerator door to reveal shelves that were shockingly bare. "Look at this. This is the prime beef they sent us today. It's tough. It's poorly marbled. And the fish, it's 2 days past its prime. I can't serve this to our guests." "Why are you accepting these deliveries?" Steph asked, his voice calm but firm. "I have no choice," the chef exclaimed. "Damon Holloway signs off on all the purchase orders. He switched all our suppliers 6 months ago to these cheap, third-rate companies. He says it's budget cuts from the new ownership. But I know this restaurant's numbers. We're not broke. Someone is pocketing the difference." Steph nodded slowly. "What's your name?" "Isabella Rossi." "Isabella, I appreciate your honesty." Just then, Damon Holloway himself rounded the corner. "Chef, what is going on here? Guests are not allowed in the kitchen." He then saw Steph and his face paled. "Mr. Curry." "I apologize. Is there a problem?" "I was just admiring the efficiency of your kitchen," Steph said smoothly. "Chef Rossi was giving me a tour." Damon shot a venomous glare at Isabella before plastering on a smile. "Of course, our chef is one of the best in the city. Now, if you'll follow me, your table at the bar is ready for your dinner order." As Damon led Steph away, Maya ducked back behind a stack of boxes, her mind racing. So, the manager was the one behind the bad ingredients. And he was blaming it on the new owners, who she now knew was Steph Curry himself. This was a real conspiracy. She was about to slip back into the dining room when she heard Damon's voice again. He was on his phone, his voice a harsh whisper. "He's here, in the restaurant. No, he doesn't suspect a thing. He thinks it's just bad service. Yes, Rex will be pleased. At this rate, Curry will be desperate to sell by the end of the year, and we'll get it back for nothing." Maya gasped. "Rex? She knew that name. Rex Holloway, the famous flameout player and former owner. He was behind this. She had to tell Steph. She waited until Damon was gone, then hurried back to the dining room, her heart pounding. She saw Steph at the bar, talking to an older waiter with a kind face. This was her chance. She approached cautiously. "Excuse me, Mr. Curry." Steph turned, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Maya, everything okay?" "I need to tell you something," she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "It's about Mr. Holloway, the manager. He's working for the old owner, Rex Holloway. I heard him on the phone. They're trying to ruin the restaurant on purpose so you'll sell it back to them." The older waiter's eyes widened, but Steph's expression remained calm, though a new hardness settled in his jaw. He looked at Maya, his gaze serious. "Thank you, Maya. That's very important information," he said quietly. "You've been a huge help, but I need you to do something for me now. Go back to your table and enjoy your dinner. Don't let anyone know you spoke to me. Can you do that?" Maya nodded, feeling a thrill of being part of a secret mission. "Yes, sir." "And one more thing," Steph added, a small smile returning to his face. "Keep taking notes for your blog. Document everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. It might be the most important review you ever write." As Maya returned to her table, she felt a new sense of purpose. She wasn't just a fan or a kid blogger anymore. She was an investigative journalist, and she was helping Stephen Curry save his restaurant. She opened her notebook and began to write, her pen flying across the page. This story was getting bigger and better by the minute. While Maya was documenting the drama in the dining room, Steph Curry and his new ally, the veteran waiter Henry, were having a quiet conversation at the end of the bar. "That girl is sharp," Henry said, polishing a wine glass until it gleamed. "And she's right, something's been rotten here for about 6 months. "You've been here a long time, haven't you, Henry?" Steph asked. 20 years, Henry replied with a sad smile. "I started as a busboy when Rex's father, a good man, opened this place. I've seen it all. The glory days, the Michelin stars, and now, this." He gestured vaguely at the chaotic dining room. "What changed?" "Damon Holloway," Henry said without hesitation. "Rex's cousin. He was a mid-level manager, a nobody. The day after the sale went through, he called a staff meeting and told us the new owners were slashing the budget, said we all had to tighten our belts. But then, strange things started happening. Our best suppliers were fired. Our best waiters were given the worst shifts until they quit. The maintenance requests for the kitchen, the plumbing, the air conditioning, all ignored. It's like they're trying to burn the place down, but slowly so no one notices the smoke until it's too late." Just then, Steph's phone buzzed. It was Alex. "I'm here, back alley entrance. Now." "Henry," Steph said, his voice low and serious. "I'm the new owner, and I need your help." Henry stopped polishing. He looked at Steph, his eyes searching. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. "What do you need, son?" "I need you to keep doing what you're doing. Be my eyes and ears out here, and I need to know who else on the staff we can trust." "Chef Isabella, for one," Henry said immediately. "She fights for this place every single day. A few of the other old-timers, too. We're the ones who remember what this place is supposed to be." "Good," Steph said, placing a generous tip on the bar. "Tell them to hang on. Change is coming." Steph slipped away from the bar and found the back alley entrance. Alex was waiting, his face grim. "It's worse than we thought," Alex said, leading Steph to his car parked nearby. "This is our war room for now." Inside the car, Alex opened his laptop. "I've been digging. Damon Holloway has been funneling money out through fake vendor accounts. Look at these invoices. Emergency plumbing repair. Premium wine purchase, all fake. The money leads to a shell corporation, and guess who owns it? Rex Holloway," Steph said, his voice cold as ice. "Bingo," Alex confirmed. "He's been stealing from you while simultaneously destroying the restaurant's reputation. He's playing the long game. He figures in another 6 months, the place will be worthless. You'll be desperate to cut your losses, and he'll swoop in with his shell company and buy it back for 10 cents on the dollar." Steph stared at the screen, a slow burn starting in his chest. The audacity of it. The sheer, bitter arrogance. This wasn't just business. This was personal. Rex was still trying to beat him, years after they'd left the court. The secrecy clause, Steph said, the pieces clicking into place. That was the key. It gave him a year to operate in the shadows, using my name as a shield for his sabotage. Exactly, Alex said. So, what's the plan? We can go in there right now, with lawyers and police, and shut them down. Steph shook his head. No? That's what he'd expect. A messy, public fight that would still tarnish the restaurant's name. We're not going to play his game. We're going to play mine. He looked back toward the restaurant, a plan forming in his mind, as precise and elegant as a game-winning play. He wants to humiliate me, Steph said, a dangerous glint in his eye. He wants to prove he's smarter than me, so we're going to let him think he is, right up until the moment we take everything away from him. What are you thinking? Alex asked. I'm going to stay undercover, Steph said. I'm going to be the most demanding, observant, and difficult customer this restaurant has ever seen. While Damon is scrambling to keep me happy, you, Henry, and Chef Isabella are going to gather all the hard evidence we need. Invoices, delivery slips, witness statements. His phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Mr. Curry, this is Maya. I heard the manager telling someone that Rex Holloway is coming to the restaurant tomorrow night with some special guests. Thought you should know. Steph smiled. His young ally was proving to be an MVP. Change of plans, Steph said to Alex. The game is tomorrow night. Rex is walking into our house, and we're going to be ready for him. It's time to turn the tables on Mr. Holloway. The next evening, the atmosphere at the Golden Gate table was thick with tension. The staff, tipped off by Henry, knew something big was about to happen. Chef Isabella moved through her kitchen, with a focused calm, preparing for a battle. Alex was in a back office, coordinating with a lawyer and an accountant. And Maya was at her usual table with her parents, her notebook open, her senses on high alert. Steph arrived and took a seat at the bar, playing the part of a returning, still unimpressed VIP. Damon Holloway hovered nearby, his smile stretched thin over his nerves. Mr. Curry, welcome back, Damon said, his voice slick with false sincerity. I trust everything will be to your satisfaction tonight. We'll see, Steph said coolly. At 8 o'clock, they arrived. Rex Holloway swaggered in, flanked by two men in expensive suits. He was louder and more arrogant than Steph remembered, soaking in the attention of the dining room. Damon rushed to greet them, bowing and scraping like a loyal courtier. Rex, welcome. Your table is ready. Damon, my man, Rex boomed, clapping him on the back. Place looks adequate. He surveyed the room with a dismissive air. Heard you had a visit from my old buddy Steph Curry last night. Don't tell me he's still crying about that championship I almost won. Rex and his guests were seated at the best table in the house, a large circular booth with a commanding view of the bay. Steph watched from the bar as Rex held court, pouring expensive wine and telling loud stories. The new owners are clueless, Rex said to his companions, his voice carrying across the room. Running this legendary place into the ground. A real shame. But their loss is our opportunity. Once the price drops low enough, we'll pick it up for a song. That was the signal. Steph stood up from the bar and began to walk slowly, deliberately, toward Rex's table. A hush fell over the dining room as patrons recognized him. The air crackled with anticipation. Rex saw him coming, and a slow, mocking smile spread across his face. Well, well, look what we have here. If it isn't the man himself, come to beg for a table, Curry? Steph stopped at the edge of the booth. Funny you should say that, Rex, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. I was just thinking about tables, and how some people don't deserve a seat at this one. Rex's smile faltered. What's that supposed to mean? It means the game is over, Steph said. He gestured toward the kitchen. On cue, Chef Isabella emerged, followed by Henry. Isabella was holding a large silver platter. What is this? Rex demanded as Isabella placed the platter in the center of their table with a thud. On the platter, laid out in a grotesque display, were the raw ingredients her kitchen had been forced to work with. The gray, slimy fish, the tough, pale beef, the wilted, brown-edged lettuce. This, Chef Isabella announced, her voice ringing with indignation, is the quality your cousin Damon has been supplying my kitchen with, all while blaming the budget cuts on the new owner. Rex stared at the platter, his face turning a shade of purple. This is ridiculous. It's a setup. Is it? A voice said. Alex Chen stepped forward, holding a tablet. Because I have the bank records showing payments for these quality ingredients going directly into a shell company owned by you, Rex, along with invoices for thousands of dollars of repairs that never happened, and premium wines that were never delivered. Rex's guests, the two men in suits, looked at the evidence on the tablet and then at Rex, their faces masks of cold fury. One of them stood up. Our deal is off, Holloway. You'll be hearing from our lawyers. You can't prove anything, Rex sputtered, his bravado finally cracking. Oh, I think we can, Steph said. He looked around the dining room, making eye contact with the stunned patrons. My apologies for the interruption, everyone. My name is Stephen Curry, and for the last 6 months, I have been the majority owner of this restaurant. A collective gasp swept through the room. I bought this place with the intention of honoring its legacy, Steph continued, his voice resonating with passion and authority. But as you've just seen, Mr. Holloway and his team had other plans. They planned to sabotage this restaurant, destroy its reputation, and steal it back. But they made one mistake. They underestimated the people who truly love this place. He gestured to Chef Isabella and Henry. They underestimated a staff that refused to give up on quality, even when they were set up to fail. He looked over and nodded at Maya, who was watching, spellbound. And they underestimated our customers, who know the difference between excellence and fraud. Rex Holloway sat frozen in the booth, his face a ruin of shock and humiliation. Damon had vanished. The investors were gone. It was over. Henry, Steph said, turning to the veteran waiter, would you please show Mr. Holloway to the door? I don't believe he'll be dining with us again. As a stunned Henry escorted the disgraced Rex Holloway out of the restaurant, the dining room erupted in spontaneous, thunderous applause. Steph stood in the center of the room, not as a basketball player, but as the proud owner who had just won a very different kind of championship. He had taken back his restaurant. And now, the real work of rebuilding its legacy could begin. 6 months later, the Golden Gate Table was the most celebrated restaurant in San Francisco. The waiting list for a reservation was months long, and the critics were unanimous in their praise. The transformation was not just a renovation, it was a resurrection. Under the leadership of executive chef Isabella Rossi, the kitchen was a temple of creativity and quality. With an unlimited budget and a hand-picked team, she crafted dishes that were both innovative and soulful, earning the restaurant back its coveted Michelin stars. Henry, now the general maitre d', ran the dining room with a warmth and professionalism that made every guest feel like a VIP. The staff was happy, proud, and loyal, and it showed in every aspect of the service. Maya Singh's food blog, Maya's Bites, had become a local sensation after she posted her exclusive, behind-the-scenes story, the night Stephen Curry saved the Golden Gate Table. She was a regular at the restaurant, often found in the kitchen learning from her mentor, Chef Isabella, or in the dining room, interviewing Steph for a follow-up piece. On this particular evening, Stephen Curry sat at his favorite table 23, the one he'd been denied on that fateful night with his wife, Aisha, and their children. The restaurant hummed around them, a symphony of happy chatter, clinking glasses, and exquisite food. You seem happy, Aisha said, smiling at him over her glass of wine. I am, Steph replied, looking around the room. This is different from winning a championship. It's quieter, but it feels just as good. He thought about Rex Holloway, who had quietly sold his other assets and left the state in disgrace. He thought about Julian, the young maitre d', who had written him a long, heartfelt letter of apology. Steph had even given him a second chance, rehiring him as a junior waiter, where he was slowly learning the meaning of humility and true service. But mostly, he thought about the team he had built here, a team founded on trust, passion, and a shared commitment to excellence. It was, he realized, not so different from basketball, after all. "You know," he said to Aisha, "my dad always told me that the true measure of a man isn't just what he can do with a ball in his hands, but what he chooses to build with his hands. A family, a community, a legacy." He looked at his children, laughing as they shared a spectacular, basketball-shaped chocolate dessert created by Chef Isabella. He looked at his wife, his partner in all things. He looked at the thriving, vibrant restaurant he had pulled back from the brink. This, he thought, was that legacy, a place of warmth and celebration, a community, a table where everyone was welcome. And it had all started with being denied a seat, a moment that had forced him to fight for something he hadn't even known how much he cared about. It was a victory that tasted sweeter than any champagne.